we are all college graduates, and I
Yeah.
agree with what you said. Everybody is not going to be fit or needs to go to college because there are different careers that can prove to be successful in life. But that leads to people creating more small businesses, having more entrepreneurs. I wonder what the party's plan is to create incentives, create policies, to create legislation to help incentivize entrepreneurs, small businesses, specifically those who are Black and brown. As we see the numbers when it comes to lending, when it comes to having scalable businesses, it becomes extremely difficult. So I wonder what the party's idea is around that.
Two major things. One is deregulation, and I know that historically in politics, deregulation gets like a bad connotation because people view it as, oh, you taking the rules away from the big guys. But I want to just tell everybody, the big guys don't care what rules you create. They have enough money and enough lawyers and enough employees to work their way around the rules. And also, if we're going to really look at how a lot of economic regulation is crafted, the big guys are in the room when it's getting written. So they know where the loopholes and where the traps are. It's your small business owner that's not in the room. They don't really know how the stuff is being crafted or drafted. So part of it is deregulation. I'll give you an example. In the digital asset space. Me personally, as a member of Congress, I sit on financial services. I believe we should have a regulatory sandbox for the digital assets industry. What I mean by that is the industry itself should stand up a regulatory body. That regulatory body creates its own rules and its own frameworks. The federal government can comment on those rules, the various agencies, whether it's FCC, Treasury, CFTC, OCC, they can comment on the rules of the digital assets industry, but the bureaucracy is not the one actually crafting the rules and the regulations. The reason why I believe that's important is because digital assets is a fledgling industry right now. It's in its infancy. We really don't know where it's going to go. It needs to be nimble in terms of how they're going to organize themselves as an industry so that young entrepreneurs can get into that space. I believe right now, not even believe, I know in digital assets, you have a lot of young Black entrepreneurs in digital assets because it's a tech industry. A lot of the overhead to getting involved is actually very, very low. There's an ability to build various tech products, whether they're direct cryptocurrency tech or supportive tech around various coins, currencies, etc. But if you have a top-down authoritative regulatory framework from Washington, it makes it harder for those people, Black people or anybody else, to be able to engage in that industry and be successful. So I think that's part of it. The other part, and that's why I keep going back to energy, because energy is infectious in everything that we do. Energy can raise the cost of production if you want to have a company in a digital space or not. And I think the third piece is, and this is where the campaign's tax policy is really important, because if you have a situation where your small business can make 100% expensing in the current year, that allows you to be able to really let those dollars flow, go directly into the enterprise, and you can recoup those dollars or decrease your tax burden associated with the dollars you expended. Last thing I will say is about capital issues. We have a major issue with access to capital in the United States, and that's because of poor banking regulatory policy. Current banking regulatory policy has made the big banks much bigger than they were at the financial collapse back in 2007, 2008. So your community banks really aren't in circulation of where they were, now 15 years ago, 16 years ago, 17 years ago. That entire framework of community banking is a lot smaller. There were some Black-owned community banks that could not survive because of the new regulatory pressure from Dodd-Frank regulation that was written and passed when Barack Obama was president of the United States. So all these things interlock and go together. That's really the Republicans' view of how you encourage small business formation, give them the legs and the ability to grow and to thrive and then be successful.
Going back to the student loan crisis, I think it's one of the biggest bubbles that we're facing. Yeah. At some point, shouldn't the colleges and universities be liable for this massive debt trap that they put out on consumers? Because if any other industry had a 50 to 60% defective rate, there would be a lot of regulatory pressure that they would face. At
Yeah.
what point do you think the colleges and universities will have to be liable?
I think it's coming, to be honest with you. I know we have members on the Hill who want to look at college endowments and say, look, these colleges have massive endowments, but they're still charging out the wazoo for kids to go. I think in terms of how you hold them accountable is tough, because when I was 17, before I went to college, when I was 17, I signed up. I signed the FAFSA forms. I did all that stuff. My mom took out a loan my first year in college because I was out of state tuition going into Florida. So we signed up. And so now, contractually, if you go back and say, well, no, colleges, it's your fault, the college is going to do what anybody else would do. They're going to hold their contracts up and be like, we didn't force anybody to sign up. We told you we were going to charge you. And that's going to be an entire mess of a situation. Me personally, I feel really awful for what's happened because, I think a lot of kids just didn't know. I know I didn't know when I went to college. I just went and I majored in a degree that I knew I would be able to make money with. But a lot of people didn't know that. They were just told, do this and it's going to work out. And it hasn't worked out. So that's why I believe the way you deal with this going forward is, first is we have to be very careful about how we subsidize student loans going forward. And that doesn't mean you get away from student loans. It's important for a lot of kids from poor backgrounds to be able to go and excel in college. But we got to be very careful about how we do that. We have to make sure kids are focused into degrees that have economic value, like I said earlier. And then the third piece really starts in high school. Are our high schools now geared to be factories towards economic success, whether that's career and college or college, or are they going to continue just to be factories for higher education? Because if high schools are going to continue to be factories for higher education, there's still going to be young kids who are going to turn into 30-year-olds who are going to feel left behind and in a lurch because the system of education is not propelling them to be successful in life.